Welcome back to the Workshop Build series. It has been almost 1 year since I started on this building. Now I know what you're thinking. It's taken you a year to get a building done. It has. My neighbor down the way here, it's taken him 5 years to get to about the same spot that I'm at now, so it happens. My daughter Emma was born, and so I'm only able to spend a few minutes a day working on this instead of hours and hours like I used to. Let's take a step back here and check out the progress that's been made over the past year. There has been a lot done. Remember that the only steps that were done by someone else helping me were some of the roof and a couple of electrical outlets and stuff. So pretty much everything else has been done just by me. So I have not really examined all of this building yet, so we will be exploring together. If we find something that's wrong, then we can just move from there. But let's start off with the retaining wall system that I built. It has been doing great. There's been a little bit of spill over here around this corner, and I just need to work on that. Probably put another block in there is what I should do, but I still need to come back and fill this with some gravel and mix so that it will be nice and strong all the way through. As you can see, there's been some spill over from the hill, and everything seems to be working well. The pipe that I have not buried yet definitely pulls water, so that drain system is working well. Let's see what else we can say about this. Definitely my first wall to build, and I'm pleased with it. There's the flush there. And anyway, this wall is doing quite well, so I'm pleased with that. The next step would be to look at the foundation, and let's start from an easier to get to section. So as you remember, I dug down several inches, it was like 6 inches or so, and placed a bit of concrete, and then used concrete blocks, and then put that on top of the wood. There's been a lot of splash here that's come off the top of the building, and it's kind of dirty, but that is doing well. Let's get a little under here. So there's been a lot of runoff that's gone under here, but so far everything seems to be doing well. Now whenever I built this place, I noticed there was a little bit of sag here on this one, and you can feel it inside. It really just needed to have maybe another shim to keep that from happening, but it's so close to level that I'm not too worried about it. Let's talk about the house wrap and sheathing real quick. The house wrap is doing really well, Tyvek, and this cheaper stuff up top is weathering a little quicker. Tyvek is rated for about 6 months exposure to the elements, and I'm afraid it's been a little longer than that, so there's been some fading going on. And over here, the building got caught with some of the winds from the recent hurricane and ripped that. So I need to cut out that section and reinstall some of that. These sheets of hardy board are about $30 a piece, and so it's really expensive. And that's kind of why I've not been able to just get out here and just do the whole thing. It's just for finances, because I do a lot of other projects that need some money, but it's definitely time to get this finished. So here on the front here, I've got this last little section up here, and then some trim boards that I need to do. And on the side, I've got one more piece here, and then along the top, let's go check out the back real quick. So back here, I have one sheet there that goes up top, and then the other side is done. But then I need to get all this in the middle finished. And then if we move around here to the other side, I've got one piece here, plus I got to do that trim piece, and then this whole side needs to be done. So there's a good bit more to do on that, but it needs to be done soon, really before any bad weather hits. The roof is holding up very well. I need to come back and trim out that piece of underlayment and then bend back that ridge cap up there. The ladder soffit and fascia was something that I had never done before, and I'm very pleased with that. The only issue I really had is you can see right here in the corner, well, maybe you can't, there's a difference between this piece and that piece. One's angled like that, other one's angled kind of down. And so there's a gap in there, and I'm not exactly sure what to do with that. And I've also noticed a wasp has built a nest up in there, so I gotta fill that somehow. I couldn't have asked for a better window. This thing is doing great. I've had absolutely no issues with water leaking or getting inside the building, and I'm very happy about that. So let's step inside now. Quick warning before we go in here. I definitely use this as an active workshop, and so it is a bit on the dirty side. So I've just got my deadbolt out here that I use as my main lock, and the doors are holding up very well. I'm a little off on one of my hinges, and so it closes automatically, but I'm okay with that. I can just put something to prevent that from opening. I've got lots of different switches for power here. So let's just prop that with a Canon WD-40. So like I said, this place is definitely a bit of a disaster at the moment. Got a bunch of scrap wood over here. Of course, the ram pump section in the back, and just a bunch of tools just thrown in here. So eventually what I'm going to have is a workbench and then a shelf around the top of most of the building, and that will hold things that I don't use on a regular basis. For instance, like that Sawzall down there, you just stick that on the shelf. Or things like shop vac and ram pump boxes. But let's start off with, I guess, the floor. And this was also some of that treated wood, and it was old whenever I got it, and it's definitely shows those signs, but I think it's going to be great. I used construction adhesive on all of these joining pieces, and then put the screws in there, and it's solid. The only thing I can tell is this side right here, there's a bit of a dip. Let's see, where's my level? I've never done this, so let's see how off it is. Maybe you can tell in there. It's off, I mean, just a little bit. We're talking, yeah, I mean, it's so small that I'm not really worried about it. And that way is also good. So anyway, just a small dip, but it's just enough that you can feel it as you walk through. Like I said, the window is doing well. I need to fill some of the gaps on that. The doors do need to have some of the weather stripping on them. I decided to go inward because it would be difficult for the door to go out and get up the ramp and stuff, so definitely had to do it that way. I decided to use OSB as the wall sheathing inside because of cost. The other that I used before I had from a friend, and it's much more expensive. Let's close this door because of loud dogs. The walls are 2x4, so I'm having to use R13 as the insulation, and it is definitely noticeable that it's improved in here as far as temperature, but I've got to get the roof done, and that will definitely improve. So this year I won't be heating in here because of the lack of insulation up top. As far as power goes, I have had no issues at all. I've run all of that myself, except for brother-in-law helped with some of these outlets over here. You can see there's still a big gap in the wall for where the air conditioner is going to go. So that's going to be a project for next year. Another issue that I've run into is the way these end boards have separated, you can see it's moved over probably a good 6 inches since I installed them, which is no big deal. Luckily those can lights have an adjustment leg on them, and it's just moved with that. The ram pump shelves have been very nice to have because of just being able to see the storage or the stock that I have. But I need to come back and sand all of these bars or burrs out of here, because I'll be reaching for a component and scrape on some of that painted wood, and it can be quite annoying. So I got to come back and sand off all those rough edges on this front here. I've decided to paint all the walls white so that it's much brighter and happier in here. And I had this one 5-gallon bucket of paint for free, and I'm just kind of using that as a base coat, and then I'll have to buy more later to finish up the walls. But that should definitely give a nice bright look in here. This wall over here, I intend on making my tool storage and workbench area. And then this will probably be broken down and used as part of the shelving unit up top. And I'm probably going to have a rollable, if that's a word, table that will come out into the big part whenever I need to do something, let's say with a big piece of plywood. But most of my work I'm going to try and do based on a workbench on this wall over here. I do intend on making a cart for most of my movable tools, so like drill press and my saw over here. I'm going to have carts for those, and I'm considering making them so that they'll be the same height as my workbench, so I can extend pieces out further like that. I had several people very concerned about the roof system on the workshop here. They were concerned that the 2x4 construction would not support the snow load in this area. Last year we had a couple inches of snow at a time, and there was no problem at all. The biggest snow I've ever seen here was 16 inches, and it lasted for about 6 or 7 days, because snow doesn't last long around here. A snow like that, I would probably come out here and just throw something on the roof and pull it down, or pull most of it down. But every 2 feet there is a new truss, and then I've got these 4 ridge ties here that take from one side of the building to the other, so that as the snow load piles up on here, those will keep the walls from bowing out any. Or at least that's the plan. So last year it did very well, no issues, so we'll see how it does this year. But as far as being strong enough, there is a local storage building place, I forget who makes them, but they only put 5 trusses, including the gable end, on their buildings, and it's cheap, terrible wood, and they consider that to be good enough for this area. So this having, and that's, I'm saying on a building that's, let's say, 10 foot long. So it's not very much. So what's next for the building here? First of all, I've got to get the outside done. So I'm going to spend a couple $100 more to get the sheathing put on, and then start working on the trim boards. And after that, I need to caulk in between the hardy siding, and then I'm going to put trim board on each of those gaps, just a little piece of something. I'm not sure what it's going to be yet. And then after that, I get to move inside, which is going to be the fun part. I need to finish up the rest of the insulation and then move on up to insulating up here. And I'm really considering putting more OSB on the inside of that insulation. So probably, I know that in this area for, let's say, a house, you've got to have a minimum of 9 inches of insulation in the roof. So I can't do that here based on the 2x4 construction. But what I can do is use something like R13 up there, and then when I put the ceiling on up there, I can probably go just on top of that ridge tie and then just angle up a little bit. And then up here in the very top, I can get a little bit more insulation. So R13 is better than no insulation at all, in my thoughts. Oh, I used some of that foam to cover up all of those little gaps that you could see between the plywood up there, and that seems to be doing well. And I was never really sure how to attach the soffit and fascia to the side of the building, and so there's little gaps in that too, and I used the spray foam in all of those holes up there to keep those gaps from being shown, because I really don't want insects to be in this building. Oh, speaking of insects, in one of my vlogs there was a large trail of ants coming in on both sides of the door, and they were climbing up the side and trying to make a nest somewhere in the building. And so I sprinkled some knockout down here on those corners, and within 24 hours those ants had fallen and were dead. So that's going to be my ticket to keeping the bugs out of here. Each wall has construction adhesive that attaches the wall to the floor, and so really the only way in for these bugs is along the doors, unless they bore through the wood, which hopefully doesn't happen. The front porch has done so well. The sun has dried out the boards a little bit, and there are larger gaps than there used to be, which is fine with me. Definitely doesn't affect anything. And so I have been more than pleased with how that has turned out. The ramp is not legal. It's way too steep. And so I put these sandpaper-like sticky pieces down, and that has helped to prevent sliding. I need to put some more of them down there and then get a rail system on here for getting up whenever it's either really wet or icy. Well, I know it's been a while since I've posted a workshop build video, and I do apologize for that. But as you can see, it's kind of costly to put those siding pieces on there. And that's what I'm doing now, is just buying one at a time or two at a time and getting them up as the money rolls in. And after that is all done, I will be able to move back inside and start on the fun stuff, like tool storage and getting that workbench built. And so that's going to be really fun to do with all that. So thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you've enjoyed a little update after a year of work. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.